name is John A. Bertels, and I was working as a consultant for Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce at Battery Park Plaza in Lower Manhattan on 9/11/2001. A few minutes before 9 that morning, probably about 4 minutes, I just finished a phone call, and the person I was sharing the room with at the time came in and said, hey, his name was Wilson. He said, hey, did you hear that a plane hit the Trade Center? So right away I'm thinking, oh, it was probably a small plane, et cetera, and probably just stalled out and glanced off the building or whatever. So he said, let's go over to the room on the other side and I'll show you. So there was a room facing northeast. Now, Battery Park Plaza is in direct view. There's no obstruction of sight, whatever. And it was a training room that faced northeast. So as we were walking over there, that's what I was thinking about. It was probably a small plane. But when we got there and I saw the amount of smoke coming out of the building, I said to Wilson, that was not a small plane. And he said, you're probably right. It was probably not a small plane. So my attention was swept to the left horizon. Note the time. It was probably about 9:02 by then. The left horizon, there was a rapidly approaching plane flying at very low altitude. And I said to Wilson, look at how low that plane is flying. What's going on? And he said the same thing. What's happening here? So no sooner did we say that than the plane swept right in front of us. Battery Park Plaza is right there. It's right by the window and hit the other tower and exploded. And the shock wave of the explosion sent us running out of the room because everything, we thought the windows were going to shatter in that training room. And we were in shock. I mean, just running out of the room to protect ourselves because that huge fireball definitely sent a shock wave. And we ran to the middle of the floor, and I don't think we said another word about it then and there. I was still for a split second in time, I was between reality and something you would see in the movies. I'm thinking to myself, what did we just see? So the powers that be quickly closed that room off to prevent people from seeing the calamity that was unfolding. And, I think I went back to the desk in our room, my desk. The internet was hanging. I tried calling my girlfriend at the time who was working in Bedminster, New Jersey, and she was away from her desk. And then I called my mom who lived in Dutchess County, because she always had the news on, but it was still breaking news and nobody had any information. I was just trying to find out, if anybody had any information yet. So she didn't know. I mean, she was, she just didn't have any information. So at that point, they started rounding us up to go downstairs to the lobby in the building just for safety reasons. Nobody knew what was happening in the area. So we went down. They just said, leave your things here and go downstairs to the lobby. And we did at the time. So it was scary being in the lobby of the building and not being able to see what was going on. We heard police sirens, loud noises, fire engine sirens, and it was just a nonstop barrage of noise there. And we're in the lobby of the building, and I think about 9:59 was when the first tower fell. We stayed down there, so then it was 20 after 9 when we went downstairs to the lobby, and from 9:59, and all that time, I guess it seems timeless when you're standing down there trying to understand what's going on. But 9:59, the first tower fell, and it was like a major earthquake in the lobby of that building. We didn't know that was happening, but everything was shaking and everything. And they started talking about, there's a cloud coming down Broadway. It traveled pretty far, from where, and Battery Park Plaza is not that far at all down Broadway, but everything started just descending upon that area of Broadway, and then they started talking about evacuating the building, and I'm thinking to myself, my things are upstairs, and I guess in a twisted sense, I'm thinking, well, how am I going to get home? My car keys, everything's upstairs. Not really just grasping the situation at hand. So when nobody was looking, I did go upstairs, and I thinking to myself in the elevator on the way up, what if the elevator shaft is damaged from, what if I get stuck in the elevator? And I was going through my mind at the time. So I went upstairs. I was the only one who went back to 10 to get my things and come back downstairs. And I did make it safely down. And in retrospect, it was a stupid thing to do. But, I guess at the time, that's what was going through my mind. But it was not long after that that the second tower fell. I think it was 1023 or whatever it was. And then they evacuated the building. Uh, we couldn't go north on Broadway. Obviously, they had the police, were standing there to make sure when they evacuated the building that we ran south. And realistically, there's no real place to run. That's like the edge of Manhattan. So I remember running down, and I went into Water Street and went into the lobby of the first building on the right hand side. I don't remember what the building is now. I think I looked at the map this past week, and there were people, camping out, and there's no place to sit, but people standing, talking about what was going on at the time, and nobody knew. The security guard in the lobby had his radio on, and people were talking about as many as 8 planes, but we still didn't know. Now, I stayed in the lobby of the building for, I want to say, about an hour and a half, I think, and I eventually sat against the plate glass window, and looking out the window, and there's a single page from a document that I know had come from the Trade Center. It was a leasing agreement between the Japanese company and their customer, and I'm thinking to myself, just 2 hours earlier, this piece of paper was on somebody's desk or in a file room or whatever. But it was just underscored to me how things had changed so rapidly in 2 hours. And I stayed uh, there for about till about a little after 12, and I saw people walking on the street and walking about. So I guess from then I decided to exit because I really wanted to go home. I mean, there was no going. We knew there was no going back to the office. Because everybody was dispersed anyway when they evacuated the building. So I went as far north as I could on Broadway before it was blocked off by the police, and I had asked about the subways, and they said, nothing is running at all. Nothing is, you're on your own. And I could not. I take the railroad in, so the subway to get there. So I had to walk. I first walked east because I couldn't go north on Broadway, and that street was like a war zone. The dust was like several inches high from the building. The smoke, the dust in the air, just the quality of the air was very bad. And I walked east 1 block and then started north towards Grand Central. And gradually my clothes, I had on a burgundy shirt and black pants and black shoes, started becoming gray, as well as my hair from the air in the surrounding vicinity. And I started walking north on from where I was at that point, not even fathoming how many people were lost. We had no information. Back then we didn't have smartphones or anything. And I came upon a squadron of not far from where I started walking, a squadron of police officers. And one of them gave me this N95 mask here. This is from 9/11. It's been in my bookcase at home in my home office ever since then. I didn't put it on because I wanted to breathe and walking at a brisk space. I guess, I also was still in kind of a shock, and I just felt like I wanted to move. But I've never used this mask, but it's a symbol of that day, to what that day for me, what it meant. Um, and so I just continued northward, and then back over to the middle of town, probably between east and west, before I started northward again to Grand Central. And I got to Grand Central after 2, well, almost 3 maybe. It took me a couple of hours to walk from Water Street all the way up there. And I made it there, and I think they had just rolled, right when I got there, they had just rolled the trains, started rolling them out again, and started everything up. So that part of Manhattan was moving again. Um, and then I made it home from there. But that specifically, I mean, people on my team in my department uh, who were in meetings in other buildings went out on leave and never came back from because of things that they saw after that day. And part of those things are detailed in that book I mentioned to you by that fireman Dennis. I have to look at his last name. And Report from Ground Zero, and that was pretty much my story. I mean, just the event of seeing that second plane fly by and explode in the side of the building. I think it particularly means a lot because part of every American soul that died that day, but particularly people who commute into that area from New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania even, and have spent time working there. One of my first jobs was at Shearson Lehman Hutton. There's a name, 3 World Financial Center, first there, and at 2 World Trade Center on 102nd, 103rd floor. So I know what it was like up there, and the helplessness that people were feeling that day. It was just one of those things that never leaves you.
John, did you return to work to that building?
We didn't return to that building. I think they were unsure of the structural integrity of it because of the 2 towers falling. So we went to the Citibank building in Midtown, the funny shaped one with the roof that's slanted. And I finished my assignment there. And after that, I went to work in Midtown in the Time Life building for about 9 years. And I was glad to have been removed from that area because just because it was definitely better for well-being, mental well-being and so forth.
That could have, not returning there, because the EPA director at the time, Christine Todd Whitman, declared the air was safe a week later, so people went back to work and their apartments and school, and people who spent time down there are now getting ill. We have lost many of them, and we continue to lose. And probably the fact that you were then located in Midtown could have saved your life. But the fact that you were there at all that day could compromise your health. Is your health okay?
Yes, my health is okay at this point. I've had annual checkups with the doctor. My numbers are okay, and I don't have any problems as a result of that particular day. And I'm aware of, a lot of local people who, around the Westchester area, have passed away from 9/11 related illnesses. And being that I do listen to Q104, I hear the advertisements from Barrage and McGarry and all that other stuff. So, no, I know that in a way, if I did come away unscathed, that that I was lucky.
Do you have nightmares? I mean, what a horrendous, horrifying, terrifying thing to witness.
I don't have nightmares, but it will always stay in the back of our head. One thing we learned about that from that day is the fragility of life. Okay, 3,000 people left their homes that day, set out to do what they do. Some died, many died in the line of duty. And none of them ever thought when they left home that they would never return home or see their loved ones again. Um, that's something I think about all the time. As a person who works in the city, uh, we realize that we're very vulnerable when it comes to any of that stuff. And the acts that followed, and in Spain and the railroads, they were similar. So those are things I think about. As far as 9/11, I would say that I think about it often, but I don't necessarily have nightmares about it. The other day I stood on Tuesday, because I'm down in that area again, on Water Street, for as a vendor for New York City Health and Hospitals. And I stood on right where One Liberty Plaza is, which my mom used to work in that building for many years. So that's another reason why you think about how this is. We're um, just from having spent so much time and having family members who spend time in those buildings, it really hurts right here. So, but I stood at that and looked down to where I was that day, because I could see, the tip of vent. Basically, you could still see where it is, and I just think, I just for a couple of seconds relived what where the towers were, and how awful that must have been on the street, let alone from the window.
Do you have anything else to add, John?
No, I mean, I think that's basically it. I mentioned that just we learn that we're only immortal for a limited time, and that's one thing we learned from this.
Thank you, John.